So Ron is an entrepreneur. He started Hylete, and actually I met Ron because a friend of mine went to school with you, and we had a relationship, and so I was able to get the introduction, and next thing I know, Ron shows up at our place. I mean, just drives up here, shows us in a place, and now we start a whole new adventure that I'm so fascinated with what Ron has built. His company, Hylete, and he can tell people more about it, is really in the lifestyle business. It's apparel. It's all about cross workouts and this whole community of people who are healthy. It's so interesting to me how he was able to build this really incredible brand. My question really, and maybe you want to first, why don't you first introduce what Hylete is, because I think it'll give context for everyone.
Yeah, sure. I can actually, let me introduce it, and I can even back up and talk a little bit about how we've journeyed through the Jobs Act. We're a little bit unique because we started prior to Reg CF, right, before it was actually official. So we actually started when it was Title II, so it was Reg 506C, so General Solicitation of Accredited Investors. That happened and transpired prior to the Reg CF. So everybody now is very fortunate that Reg CF exists because that is much the preferred route. We had the issue that we started Hylete, or I started Hylete back in 2012 as a digitally native company selling, at the time, one pair of cross-training shorts. I've been in apparel business and designing products since 1994, third major company that I started, and I was really saw kind of the writing on the wall with retail in particular, that everybody was buying online, myself included, and I really wanted to essentially just not deal with retailers in particular, which turned out in 2012 I couldn't raise money at all because everybody asked me, what is your retail strategy? And I said, I don't have one, so I appeared crazy. By 2015 I looked like a genius. So that's how they just stay in place, they'll eventually come around. So we started in 2012, digitally native companies, obviously timing was great. We were fortunate that Facebook went public and their advertising used to be really cheap back then, so I regret that I can't spend $50 and make $5,000 anymore. So we got into crowdfunding early, Reg 506C. That was a lot more challenging. It really isn't really good for a lot of companies. It takes a lot more work, and you really the shame is that the average person, in our case, probably 90% of our customer base, was prohibited from investing. Then along comes Reg CF, and fortunately, Howard is a very persuasive sales guy and tracked me down, and I kind of lost faith in crowdfunding because everything took so long, and we ended up coming up here in October of 2016, and I think you guys only had maybe 5, 6, 7 companies, I think.
Well, yeah, we
on the platform at that point.
For this history, Reg CF launched May 2016.
Yeah.
And so we started looking for customers,
yeah.
And we had maybe 3.
Yeah,
4?
so we're definitely early. Yeah. So we ended up starting, and then we started the conversation. We actually delayed it a bit just because we were so holiday focused that we kind of put it on the back burner. We came out early in 2017, launched in February, I believe, and I think in about 40 days we raised $1 million. We had keep in mind we had started in 2012, so we had quite a few customers and quite a few customers that had beat us up over the years saying that they wanted to invest because, but they weren't accredited, which was literally everybody on our team as well. Like we couldn't, even our current employees, couldn't invest either. So at that point, we launched, and what it reminded me, it was really a utopia for entrepreneurs. I mean, I've been doing this since '93. And it was the first time that you didn't have all the regulations and basically all the red tape and all the bureaucracy that any entrepreneur usually hates. And so I definitely got the bug for a couple of reasons. One, when you raise $1 million in 42 days and it's that easy, that's pretty compelling, right? Because usually you go to meeting after meeting, you talk to 5 people that don't understand your business, and you go talk to another 5 people that don't understand your business, and it's defeating. It reminds me of retail, of going to trade shows, and you're waiting for that one buyer to come by, and then you realize that they weren't interested, and you wasted 4 days of your life. So I think the democratization of capital with Reg CF in particular is probably the most powerful one that was made within the Jobs Act. so the Title III section of jobs. That allowed us to not only allow those customers that couldn't invest previously to invest, but what was really cool is that we had done a Kickstarter round maybe a year prior just to kind of test that out, prior to even obviously StartEngine being around. And it was actually pretty useful because I almost view like a Kickstarter round as like a precursor to an equity crowdfunding round. Because you can learn a lot of tools there, you learn the marketing side. It's really, if you think about it, the StartEngine portal and a Kickstarter portal, it's kind of the same thing, except StartEngine, you're getting obviously equity in the company. You're not just getting a good deal on a product or being the first that actually purchased it. So we learned a bit there. We actually started talking to Howard and StartEngine team about using perks, much like a Kickstarter. And I was pleasantly surprised, like in any other realm of raising money, you couldn't do anything like that. But the perks side became, I think, one of the more powerful things that we had. We ended up going out at, I think, a $250 minimum investment at the time. And we offered quite a few perks to investors, one being a better investor account type on our e-commerce platform and guarantee them a better price. They got things like we took their investment and gave them 10% of their investment amount in the form of store credit. And what ended up happening is a lot of people did the math and said, well, if I'm going to spend $1,200 over the next couple of years anyway, basically my investment is free. So that was another powerful way that we were able to accomplish that. And then what's turned out is our investors have become by far our most powerful ambassador group, without doubt. I think so, and I love the fact it was a smaller amount of money because there's success in numbers, and we ended up with about 1,600 investors, I believe. And I think the most powerful statement that I can make about it is this, is that we do that, we get the $1 million roughly, minus the StartEngine cut and minus whatever we spend on advertising. The interesting thing on advertising for us, as a side note, when we were advertising and being a consumer product company, we got the secondary benefit that when we advertised in terms of our investment, we also sold product. So it wasn't as expensive as if we didn't already have a product available that we could sell at the same time. Since we've been doing several rounds now, we've done a total of 7 crowdfunding rounds since 2013, 3 on the Tier 2, 1 Reg CF, and 3 Reg A. But the compelling story is they've got 1,600 people, or 1,600 investors at this point. One of the things that we put on the portal that we were going to get into, started with a pair of shorts. We had developed a pretty full line of performance apparel for men, a limited line for women, but we wanted to get into footwear. I'm actually wearing a pair right now of the Circuit cross-training shoe, and the idea was develop a shoe that would compete against the Nike Metcon, good for cross-training, and my concept was to supply 3 separate insoles, one for lifting, one for cross-training, one for running. And being a digitally native brand, you can get away with that. If you put that in Dick's Sporting Goods, it would be difficult. Or even trying to just do one pair of shoes. We launched kind of like Henry Ford. You can have it any color you want as long as it's black. And then, so we do the shoes, we show it, and that's one of the compelling stories that people are like, oh, I get where you guys are going. You're more than athletic wear. We even show other things that are content-based, daily circuit apps, so fitness content, and really thinking about an ecosystem. And it's kind of funny, as along the way, I had seen the company called Peloton when they were nothing, and I'm like, oh, that guy's like, I get where he's going. It's a different crowd from us, but I get the ecosystem play, and I'm impressed with what they've accomplished. So back to the shoes. So we talk about the shoes. The reality is we have a growing business, and we don't have the finances to go out and build all the tooling for shoes or even build the inventory. So along the way of asking for investment, we did a lot of investor surveys, and I think 90+% of the investors had commented that if we were going to launch and get into a new product category, a new endeavor, these things they saw in the StartEngine portal, that they would back us. So I took them up on that. I sent an email out to 1,652 investors, or something in that neighborhood, and ended up pre-selling in about 30 days 1,600 pairs of shoes, which allowed us to buy all the tooling, basically cut all the POs, and essentially we're in footwear because of not only the investment that happened on StartEngine, but those 1,600 plus investors buying 1,600 pairs of shoes. We did the round in February, closed it in early April. I think it was 40-some days. I think we were one of the fastest at the time, and then we've been beat several times over at this point. But and then I went out in June and asked the question, because that was the first time we had the first prototype back. Okay, we know it works. We like the shoe. Sent an email to the investors and said, hey, you can buy them certainly at a discount, right? But the caveat is we're not going to ship it to you until February of the next year. So essentially, about 8.5 months after they gave us the money. So it was really impressive that people believed in the company so much, and they got to learn about the company during kind of the StartEngine phase. They'd learned about it, previously of buying, but that portal and that connection with the customer as you go through the StartEngine process is really paramount. I mean, you have to put the energy and time into it. It's not just magic that you throw it up on the StartEngine portal and all of a sudden, money starts rolling in. You have to create that connection, and it's like anything else. I was saying it earlier to someone, it's like, the first people on YouTube, you could do anything and you were famous. And in today's world, you have to cut through all the noise, and you cut through the noise by connecting with people, and you have to spend the time and energy. And I think anybody interested in doing any crowdfunding, they have to be comfortable, talking about what they do and selling their vision. At the end of the day, I mean, people are investing in you, the entrepreneur. They have to believe in the product, certainly, but it's really you, the entrepreneur, telling that story and getting that message across.
So one of the objections we get from our customers constantly, which is, I have to show my financials. I have to display my balance sheet, my income statement, even though it may be negative, by the way. How do you feel about that, this transparency issue?
I think in today's world, if you're not transparent, you're doomed for failure. I think you have to take a hard look, and if you were raising your money in any other way, people will dig a lot deeper in any situation. If you talk about private equity or VC, I mean, it's amazing the amount of information they'll dig into. They'll probably go interview your kindergarten teacher or something. So I think in today's world, you have to do that. I think it's just practical anyway. And I think there's a lot of value in that. I think I highly encourage everybody, if they're kind of newer in the process, getting at least, if you're a consumer products company, say, or something, you have inventory, get inventory accounts, get at least a review completed so you can go back and get audited financials, because that's going to be a necessity at some point if you're successful. And I prefer to plan for success than, having success happen and then not knowing what to do with it. So, when you're transparent, and it doesn't mean people don't expect you to make money. I mean, in today's world, look at Uber, Lyft. They're setting a good track record of you can be wildly successful, at least in market cap, and not make a dime and perhaps lose $10 billion. The concept of showing that's you have to have those financial experts. They don't necessarily have to be in-house, but you have to have that consultant, that CFO type person that you can lean on. That audit firm, that accounting firm, to create that credibility, because without the credibility, your chances of success, go tremendously down. People want to have confidence that what you're saying is true, and people sometimes talk about, the competition is going to see it. We've been really transparent, and certainly we were. It was started with StartEngine. We were pretty transparent anyway, but at that point, if anything, as we got into Reg A and some of the other things that we've done, we had to actually back off because we were complying with new standards that we had to do, and it wasn't as free as the Reg CF. Like I said, Reg CF is a beautiful place to start. I mean, in my perfect world, you design a product, you get your friends and family to kind of back you, you get maybe a prototype and get a couple made, then you go to Kickstarter and you get a few people to back that, and they're like, okay, I have this is a real business, and I've been doing it a year, 2 years, and I have real traction, I understand what I'm supposed to be doing with this. Then you come to the StartEngine, boom, you raise that money. And you can obviously raise it in different stages, and hopefully they'll change the regulations and up the cap on that a little more substantially than what it is today. I mean, we certainly would have liked it being higher back in 2017. And then you have these next inroads. Obviously, you have the yearly ability for the Reg CF, but then you have obviously the natural progression to the Reg A. And it means that along the way, you have to be buttoned up on your financials. And if you have a really good business model and you believe in what you're doing, it doesn't matter who sees it. No competition can just look at your numbers and look at what you're doing and follow you if you're really good at what you do.
The other thing I want to talk about is the marketing. You mentioned that you were able to do digital marketing and acquire customers, and then what happens next? Given that you're raising money, you're selling, you're doing both at the same time.
Yeah, it was like, especially in these later rounds, we bifurcated kind of our budget, if you will, bifurcated our look at, hey, what is really truly, we're just kind of really focused on raising money. Obviously, the video excerpts of that and all the collateral behind it was very product-based, and we realized that we were doing really, really well of selling product on our financial-based ads, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or the like. So we were getting kind of a double benefit, if you will. And some people were like, oh, I didn't know, I've heard of that company. haven't bought something yet, but I probably should buy something before I invest. So it was a natural way for them to even think about buying. Fortunately, we had a high success rate there, and it helped us obviously generate the capital to put more effort into that. I mean, I noticed it as soon as every time we've been raising money, we obviously our customer acquisition goes up. So we have more money to spend, obviously, because we're actually taking money that's on the cash that we have available to just for the investment purpose. But we're getting a double benefit, and it's I suspected that might happen, but it's actually, sometimes you suspect something to happen and it doesn't actually happen. This time it actually did and actually worked better than anticipated. I think our last round, we effectively, I can't say the exact number, but effectively, I don't think we paid much in terms of our financial ads because they all generated enough money to pay for themselves. We were only capital constrained. That's the reason we were raising money. So we couldn't do more to find that point of where it wasn't, the return on investment wasn't 100% of the cost.
Yeah, that's amazing to build a business through investors, through customers who are tied together. What about one objection we hear from entrepreneurs is this cap table concept. Oh, my cap table, I'm going to have 3,000 people. I can't handle it. It's too hard. How do you feel about it?
Piece of cake. You'll have every possible person, if you talk to any institutional investor, private equity investor, anybody in the old school domain that I don't even think about anymore, they'll say it's a problem, it's a problem, it's a problem. And it's really, there's a lot of good solutions out there. Fortunately, at the time, we only had about 60 investors and raised about, in 3 rounds, about $3 million using the old school kind of 506C. When we came to StartEngine, we realized, wait a second, we're this $250, and even if everybody does the minimum, we're going to end up with a lot of investors. So we were using a company called eShares Inc. at the time, who's since changed their name to Carta. We actually lobbied them to change their fees to recognize Reg CF crowdfunding and what we were doing on StartEngine. And they did because it was cost prohibitive. It was one of those things where you're getting $250, but they're charging you, call it, I don't remember the exact number, imagine if they're charging you $10 a month per investor, doesn't financially make sense. But the market is so big because the software, it's software as a service. There's no extra cost to them doing anything. They just want they want the account, right? So they changed their pricing after 6 months of us beating them over the head a bit. And now the platform's really good, and there's probably other ones out there, I'm sure, that have emulated it. But we use it all the time, and it keeps track of everything, including, it's a really simple platform. And we've had some fairly complex cap tables with 3 classes of preferred stock, common stock non-voting, warrants, option plan. It keeps track of it all. It's really quite easy, and I think it adds a lot of validity to those investors that invest as well, because if they have a cap table, so a software as a service cap table, that's one example is Carta. I'm sure there's plenty others. They get that sense of security. They can log in, see what they had, how much they paid for it, just like anything else in their financial world personally. And they even get their little, hey, you got a certificate, accept it. And not that it's real, but they get a little picture of a stock certificate too, if that makes people feel better if they want to print it out and stick it in a drawer somewhere.
So in a way, Ron, what I like about your story is that all the myth we hear, which is, oh, I don't want to show my numbers because people are going to not want to invest because obviously you're not making money yet. Oh, all the cap table, and I'll never be able to get a VC because now you have how many? 4,000? 3?
We have about 4,352.
Yeah, it's 4,352. StartEngine, I think we're close to 4,000 and some as well.
And
so
we'd have more, but the regulations, we would have gotten a lot more when it was 250 early on. We had to close it down, and then even since then, the good part too is we've had a lot of if you think about it, we've done, let's say the rounds after accredited, so anybody could invest just based upon income, self-stated income statements. But on average, people have invested like 2.5 times. So it's not like they invested once. So we really get that kind of continuing investment as we go out to different rounds. And we've substantially, because we've had success, raised that price. I mean, we from the StartEngine round to the one that we closed down in November of 2018 are basically we're viewing as our pre-money equity valuation. And I always use, for me, I was always using 5 times trailing 12-month revenue. Every market and every situation is different. But we had enough success that we'd actually, by the time we did the last round, we had doubled the pre-money valuation. So people were still investing, but it emulates kind of the public stock markets. Obviously, liquidity, as you were talking about earlier, is constantly an issue, and I think there's long-range changes that will happen as more people invest. And the more I wasn't aware of, like the IRA thing is really big. We were fortunate that we've had quite a few people that we got good at getting people into self-directed IRAs and getting them to invest, and allowed a lot of people who really wanted to invest more to invest it, obviously much better in terms of their own personal tax treatment, but also tap into something that they believed into, and it could take a bigger piece. So it helped us and it helped them, and it took us internally a lot of work to help figure out how to get people into self-directed IRAs and manage the process and do things correctly, but we managed to pull that off last year, and it was helpful in terms of raising Reg A crowdfunding. So Reg CF is another huge benefit for sure.
Well, what's amazing here in this story is, Ron is a pioneer in many ways. Pioneer in his business, but also pioneer in the financial capital market creation. He's using all these terms, Reg CF, Reg A, very, very easily. He understands the regulations. He's been through it. This is amazing because think about this. Before the Jobs Act, any of the stuff he's talking about right now, nothing. You couldn't talk about raising money. That had to be hush-hush. If you wanted to talk to the general public, you had to go public. But everybody knows that going public on the marketplace is great if you're an Uber, a Lyft, or a large company. But how many are? There's 4,700 companies that went public, and it's shrinking. And because the cost, I think, is pretty significant. Anyway, point being, you have an entrepreneur here who figured out a way to raise capital for his business, grow his business in conjunction as he was building the business, not just an afterthought, not a milestone where I stop, I go raise money, I don't raise money, I stop my business, then I'm done, or I can raise money, but now I'm way behind because I didn't have time to continue on my business. You're doing both all the time, and that is fascinating.
Well, I think it certainly helps, and we're fortunate because we're digitally native. We already work in social networks in particular is such a big piece of our customer acquisition and customer retargeting, and obviously keeping our current customer engaged. So that obviously is big. So if you have that already in-house capability, it makes it really easy to turn that, and it's the same processes, the same mindset, and you're adding the angle that you can, like for us, it was own part of the brand that you helped build, because obviously we started with 1,000 pair of shorts at an event and sold all of them, and then made some more and made some more and made some more. So the people buying the actual product did build the company with us. But I think there's, obviously StartEngine has obviously resources as well, and there's a lot of resources out there. And it's one of those things where at the end of the day, it's such a powerful piece. If you're looking at hiring somebody, you can think with the mindset of hiring, and we ended up hiring somebody specifically just to manage this piece of the business on a day-to-day. I think she probably knows almost not all 4,000 plus investors, but she knows a lot of them because she has the conversations. She takes care of the ongoing communications, and if people have questions, she's the one answering it, and there's a face to that. So whether you find someone external, you use StartEngine resources, other resources, it might be that person you want to add anyway, make that commitment, especially if you want the best chance of success, whether it's Reg CF or moving on to Reg A's with obviously higher cap levels.
So one of the things that strikes me here is, if you think about what Ron's story, his journey, this is the future of finance. Now, a lot of people, when we started StartEngine, were arguing that it's not going to work because, one, no one will ever invest online. That was the first we heard. Then they heard that you're going to get sued out of your own business by the investors. That we heard that as well. A lot of naysayers, by the way. You know what they look like, right? When I started Activision, it was the same thing.
That's what fires you up.
No one will ever buy games, that kind of stuff. Anyway, games are dead.
It'll never work.
It doesn't work. So you guys hear this all the time. Obviously, I know you're going to ignore that. Actually, when you hear it, it's actually a good sign.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah,
it's like, I'm on the right track.
If everyone's agreeing with you, I would question what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I take a lot of energy and a lot of internal power when people tell me I can't do something. And it's usually, especially if they're the establishment, so I call that anybody that just thinks the old way, if you will. It's a brand new generation for entrepreneurs. It's a brand new generation for crowdfunding of all types. And it actually, there'll be things of the old, including the public markets, that going along this path, and I can speak, from experience, it's positioned us to go circumvent all private equity, all venture capital, develop a large customer base who's also an investor base, because when I talk, and obviously we've made this a public record that we are one of the main options in our optionality that we're looking at as a public offering. The reason that we actually have more power in doing that is we already have such a large customer base that's also an investor base, so the notoriety that comes with that, as well as these investors are people that believe in the company. So typically you'll see, oh, okay, institutional investors are better because they're long-term holds and you don't have the volatility. But I posit to you that the actual consumer who believes in what you're doing is actually the long-term play, because they're not going to sell it. They don't want to be the person that sold Apple too early, the person that sold Amazon too early. And they'll sell, if they're selling, the reason will be is they don't like your product or your service anymore. So that's the efficiency of having an investor who's also a consumer. They will let you know if your customer satisfaction goes down, your return rates go up, then you know that you're doomed in terms of your investment, because people are going to sell. That's why I think the world has changed, that you can build your base and then be a public company, because effectively you're building a public company in baby steps, if you will. The first one is Reg CF at maybe 100,000, or and then it's the next level, then the next level, and I think that's what we've been able to do as building that foundation, because we started back in 2013. Like I said, everyone here is fortunate because the laws have changed as of 2016, right? When StartEngine wasn't possible till then. And now that's available, and then there's obviously Reg A right behind that. And I think when we talked StartEngine, you guys weren't into the Reg A business yet. You were just obviously still cutting your teeth on the Reg CF. So we've both grown a bit.
And there's no surprise that Ron's story and the StartEngine story are parallel and similar. We raised our own money as well on StartEngine using Regulation A+. Last year we raised $5 million, so we were oversubscribed. We just launched another one a few weeks ago for $10 million. And sometimes our customers, they're a little, they're not too happy about it, because they say, hey, you know what? You're going to get investors, and what about us? I said, hold on a second. Our raise, over half of the people who invest in StartEngine are not StartEngine investors on the platform. They're new, because we advertise. Last year we spent
investor acquisition, right?
Yeah, last year we spent $1 million in advertising on Facebook and LinkedIn, and that brought in a bunch of new investors, which, by the way, can invest in your companies as well. And so, in a very strange way, we're creating a community of investors that we're bringing in who are excited about investing in StartEngine, then excited to invest in other companies, which helps their investment, right? The same way as they're buying your product, they're consuming your product, that helps their investment, doesn't it? I mean,
no, it's great, yeah.
And now they tell their friends and say, hey, by the way, they say, what is this shirt? Oh, Hylete. What? Hold on a second. I'm an investor in Hylete. Great. And now you're building more interest in the brand.
I'll apologize up front if you ever sit in an airplane beside someone wearing all Hylete. They're probably an investor, and they're going to talk your ear off. So I apologize.
Well, that passion that you see from his customer base, investor base, is the passion that you want to build for your customer investor base. And this is a new era for all of us. We're learning, as I said, we're learning every day better ways to help you raise capital. We don't have all the answers, but we have over 3 years, 350 customers experiences. We know what works. We've learned what didn't work. We're learning new ways it works. Having Ron here is a real treat, because he's telling you his journey, the story that actually worked. You will find other people today on the panels who've done it, people who are going to be doing it. Later on, I'm going to meet with people who are already on StartEngine and raising capital, and I'm here to help answer questions, add more value to your journey. Building a modern financial firm is what we do. Having modern entrepreneurs like Ron, who is embracing this Jobs Act, I mean, embracing it in every aspect, is extraordinary. So, Ron, thank you.
Yep. Thanks for tracking me down back in 2016. Thank you.